Welcome to Restore 2023. Today we're reading Nahum chapter 3. This chapter, which describes the judgment and utter destruction of Nineveh, may seem overly harsh to our ears. But God's condemnation of the city is just. We might say it's an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, because the Assyrian Empire had spread using unprecedented cruelty and carnage as its armies rampaged through other countries. And the city of Nineveh, the jewel in Assyria's crown, was built on this innocent blood and enriched from the plunder of nations. Consequently, Nahum declares God will also treat Nineveh with contempt. In verse 8, Nahum taunts them. Just in case the city thinks it is impregnable, it should remember the fate of Thebes. Thebes, also known as Not Ammon, had been the centre of the Egyptian Empire for nearly 1400 years. It had an elaborate system of moats and other defences that gave it the illusion of invulnerability. But in the year 663, it was defeated, and it was the Assyrians themselves who conquered it. And now, says Nahum, you too will seek refuge from the enemy. And they're mockingly advised to work quickly and prepare for a long siege. The enemy, as it transpired, was a coalition of Mede, Babylonian, Scythian forces who in the year 612 overran Nineveh's outlying fortresses, just as Nahum described in verse 12. They laid siege to the city for 3 months. And as it happens, the Scythians were renowned for their cavalry. So when the city was eventually breached, the descriptions of verses 2 and 3 must have been frighteningly accurate. The city was sacked, the people were scattered, and as verse 19 says, the wound was fatal. The city was left to fall into a heap of desolate ruin. And in fact, when Xenophon and the retreating Greek army passed it 200 years later, it was already an unrecognisable mass of debris. But back for a moment to chapter 1, where we are told the Lord is good, a refuge in times of trouble, and he cares for those who trust in him. So at the end of chapter 3, God's action against Nineveh, which brings an end to the Assyrian Empire, is very good news to all the peoples who have been oppressed by them. All who hear about the fall of Nineveh will clap their hands, declares Nahum. As a final thought, the opening verses of Nahum proclaim that God will not leave the guilty unpunished. Perhaps then, Nineveh's fate is a challenge to violent and arrogant regimes in every age, including ours.